Hi, in this one, we're going to be creating our second project in the course. It's going to be called a simple calculator, wherein we create a menu-based calculator that asks the user for what kind of calculation they want to do. It gives them options, the user chooses their option, and then finally the program makes a decision on what option the user has chosen and what kind of calculation does the user want, and finally gives your user the intended or desired result. So let's just get into it. For this, just open up PyCharm, create a new project. As always, navigate to your project directory, click on open, put a forward slash, and let's call this simple calculator. And I'm going to call it simple calculator 2 because I already have a simple calculator project from earlier. So I'm just going to call it simple calculator 2 and create it in a new window. As always, remove all the default code and, well, start off. Now, what's the first thing that we want to do? We want to display a menu of all the operations, all the mathematical operations that our simple calculator is going to do. So in this case, let's just take like maybe 5 mathematical operations, which could be addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and exponent or an exponential calculation, right? So in this case, this calculator, since it is a simple calculator, it just takes two numbers and works with two numbers. What you could do is right after doing this project, you could add more numbers to your calculator if your user wants it. That could be as a challenge to you. But as of now, for the sake of this lesson, we'll be taking only two numbers that will be uh, working with the user and with the calculator as well. So let's create two variables as before. Number 1 equals something and number 2 equals something. Now in this case, the first thing for us as programmers, we need to decide the data type that we'll be working with for this project. That's a simple calculator. As you know that a calculator always gives answers in decimal points, or has the potential to give answers in decimal points, because if the user wants to divide something like 2 by 3 or 1 by 2, you get a fractional answer. So you can't work with integers in that case, or maybe something like 2.75 on 5, right? So it's better to actually just use floats or the float data type in this case, so that our calculator can take up almost any value. So I'm just going to use float as the typecast, and then input, and in this case we just write number 1, and the same thing right here, float input number 2, right? Now, before our program asks the user to enter these two numbers, our program should ask the users what kind of a calculation do they actually want to do. So this is something new that you'll be learning in this one. Here, first we'll create a menu for the user. So for the menu, we could write many print statements, right? We could write something like print 1 for addition, and then, just copy this and then paste, oops, paste, and paste right here, just like that. And then we could have 2 for subtraction, 3 for multiplication, 4 for division, and 5 for the exponential uh, calculation. But these are just too many print statements. Instead, I'm going to teach you one trick. So in Python, when you take a string, right, I said that anything within double quotes or single quotes is a string, but this is a single line string. What we could do is, instead of having double quotes or single quotes, we could have 3 double quotes at the beginning and 3 double quotes at the ending, and this becomes a multi-line string, right? So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write welcome to this simple calculator, and then we'll give our options. Choose a number from the menu. So 1 is addition, 2 is subtraction, 3 is multiplication, 4 is division, and 5 is uh, exponent, right? Or a raised to the power of b. Yep. So something like that. Now that we have our options ready, what we'll do is we'll also write this in the string which says choice. So this is again a part of the string. It's if I just comment that out and print out our string s and run it, this is what it prints out. It says, welcome to the simple calculator, choose this. So it also tells the user that, okay, you're supposed to enter your choice here, but right now you can't enter anything here simply because this is not an input statement. It's just a string, right? So now what we're going to be doing is, instead of naming this string s, let's just name the string menu, which is our calculator menu. And then we'll create a new string called input, right? So we'll write user input is a new string or a new input. And in this case, it's going to be a float input, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, not even float. It's actually going to be an int input. And the int input should show this menu. So int input, and inside this input, you simply type menu. And when you type menu, what happens is, I'll run this, and now it says the same thing, but after choice, I can actually write something like 10. And when I press enter, it allows me to enter some kind of a number and, well, do some kind of an operation. So in this case, my user input stores the number that the user enters in this case, and it should be an integer. So my user input stores that, it displays the menu, takes the input, which is the choice of the operation that the user wants to perform. And then finally what I can do is, if user input equals 1, that means that the user wants to add something, right? So before this decision making here starts, we really just want to ask the user for the two numbers that they want to add, right? So if the user input is equal to 1, then print out string of number 1 plus string of number 2 plus, within double quotes, equals plus string of some kind of a addition variable. So let's say add addition equals number 1 plus number 2, and here we print out the string of the addition variable. Pretty simple. Let's go ahead and write the next statement, which is elif user input equals 2. So what's the second one? That is subtraction. So let's create a new variable, subtraction, equals number 1 minus number 2, and then we'll print this whole thing right here, subtraction. Yeah, and just keep in mind that you need to have these indentations to let Python know that these two need to be executed only if this statement is true. These two need to be executed only if this statement is true, right? Now, elif user input equals 3, we have multiplication. So multiplication equals number 1 asterisk or star number 2, and then we print the same thing. So I'm really just going to copy this, copy and paste. Yep, so it says number 1 and then number 2 equals multiplication. But there's one thing that I just realized that I totally missed, which is this is number 1 plus number 2. So this is just going to be, let's say, 10, 20, right? So we need to write the operator here as well. So this is going to be the plus operator right here. So number 1 plus number 2, right? You're creating a full string out of it. And this has the same thing right here. And we need to add a plus here. and this has the same thing right here. Okay, so number 1 plus number 2, number 1 minus number 2, number 1 multiplied by number 2. That gives us multiplication. And then we have division as well. So elif user input equals 4. Then you want division equals number 1 by number 2. And then you print this whole thing out just as it is. So I'll just print it out right here. Instead of the star, I'll put a forward slash, and instead of multiplication, I make it division, because here the division variable actually stores the result of our calculation. And then elif user input equals 5. Then we simply write exponent equals well, number 1 star star number 2. So in this case, let's say number 1 is 2 and number 2 is 3. So this would be 2 raised to the power of 3, right? So that is 8. So that is what will be stored inside the exponent variable. And then we simply want to take this print statement again, and instead of this sign, we'll put the exponent sign, and instead of division, we write exponent. That's done. But what if the user enters something like 6 or 7 or 10 or something, some other number which doesn't really exist, right? In this case, you know that all of these conditions will be false if the user enters anything except 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So what would you do? You'd simply write else print invalid choice. Please run the program again and try. Yeah, something like that. Basically, this is called an error message in programming. It's a very basic error message for now, and it really serves the purpose of a simple calculator. So let me just correct that typo. And well, that is our program right here. So what we've done here, just to recap before we start off, first off, we created a menu variable, which is a multi-line string. How do we say that? Because we have, it starts with 3 opening double quotes and 3 closing double quotes, and then we write our menu inside that. Then we take a variable for user input, wherein the user enters an integer value 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 based on this menu that is displayed. Then we take the 2 numbers from the user that will be used for the calculation in a float format or in the float data type. And then finally, we create, or we use this decision making process to actually give the user their desired result. So if the user presses 1 as an integer to the user input, then our user input variable is compared that if user input equals 1, then we create an addition variable, we add the 2 numbers entered by the user, and then we print it in the form of a string just like this, right? So let's test that out. Let me run that. It says choose a number from the menu. So in this case, I want to do addition. So I'll type 1, which is my choice. And then my program rightly or correctly asks me for the number 1. So in this case, I'll write 10. Number 2 is going to be 20. And it says 10.0 plus 20.0 equals 30.0. So this answer right here comes from this print statement right here. Yeah. Let's try another one, maybe the multiplication. So my choice is going to be 3, and the first number is going to be 100, and the second number is going to be 10, right? So 100 taken 10 times is 1000. So it says 100 multiplied by 10 equals 1000, right? So our simple calculator is actually working pretty well. Let me run this, and let's just try out the exponent operation. So I'll type 5, and we write 2 raised to the power 3, and that should give me 8. Yeah, that's correct. But now let's type something that's not on the menu. So in this case, that would be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 0, 20, any number, right? So let's just take 10, or maybe 100,000, 1 million, 1 billion, whatever. Just take a random number and press enter. It still asks you for a certain number, and when it says invalid choice, please run the program again and try. right? So this is the basic program, and it's actually pretty simple to understand. There are certain things that you could optimize. So a couple of challenges for you would be to try and print this using the format statement. So think about how you could use the format statement to do this. So you could pause the video right now before I give out the solution, or you could just continue and take a look at the solution. So in this case, you can see that this particular statement, this whole string that we are creating, is being used multiple times, and all that we are changing here is the number one, then the sign, the operator sign, number two, and well, finally the variable right here. So what I could do is I could just create a variable, something like result string, right, and make that equal to a string. So first off, we want number one, then we want the operator, then we want number two, then we want an equal sign, and then we want the result, right? That's exactly what's happening here, correct? So number one, the operator, number two, and the result. So instead of this whole print statement, I'm just going to comment that. What we could do is we could simply print out result string dot format, and then in the format statement we could write number one, comma, within double quotes the plus, because that is our operator. So number one, the operator, number two, and well, the result. So number one, comma, plus within double quotes, then number two, and the result, which is stored inside the addition variable. So there we go, addition, just like that. And if I just copy this whole thing and I paste it here and here and here and finally here, all I need to do is just change the operator. So in this case it would be the subtraction operator, this case it would be the multiplication, here it would be the division, and finally here it would be the exponent right there. And instead of addition, here we'd have subtraction, multiplication, division, and exponent. So once I run this, I should ideally get the same output. So in this case, let's take one where we have this print statement and the new one. So I'll just take the exponent again. So let me take 5. Number 1 is 2. Number 3 is 3. Now it gives me the exact same output, but what you can see is I am simply using the format function to reduce the length of the line of code that I'm actually writing, and it's actually pretty simple to understand. So I just created one string up here, and instead of typecasting everything all the time, I could simply format it into these curly braces inside the result string using the string format function. So there's many more ways to actually optimize this program. Tell me about all of the ways that you can think of to optimize this program and make it better. If you have a better, more fancier solution to this, feel free, like literally more than free, to put it down in the comment section so that everyone can look at it. Also, you could put it inside the programming section on our Discord channel or the new idea section on the Discord channel. Just make sure it reaches your peers that have also taken this course so that everyone can learn just as well as you are. Otherwise, if you've got any questions, always put them down in the comments. My team or I will come up with the best and the simplest answers for you ASAP. Until then, just have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.